At the end of the last century, feels like a long time ago, in 1994, I was on a visit to India, to the Aurelio Foundation, at which time I was heading the commission, the board of the foundation. At the same time, the Dalai Lama was on a visit to nearby Chennai, the former Madras. I asked for a courtesy visit to say hello, and he received me, and I started talking at his request what my current plans are. I said, I'd like to develop a manifesto about the need for a new consciousness. He said, how does it sound? And I began to recite some of the lines that we have drafted. His Holiness then stopped all his appointments for that afternoon. His secretary was sitting next to him, and he said, let's see about this manifesto. We started drafting it. And at the end of the afternoon, by evening, we had the basic text of what became the Manifesto on the Spirit of Planetary Consciousness. And that manifesto, then a year later, in 1996, has been formally adopted by the Club of Budapest. And we had very many highly regarded luminaries here joining together to sign it. Now, what's the point of this manifesto? And why is it still so very timely today? Probably more timely than ever. Because it talks about a new consciousness, a planetary consciousness. Now, what does that mean? At the time we had to explain it, people didn't understand. Now, of course, there's much more understanding of it. We mean by it a consciousness that corresponds to ourselves, to us, as members of a planetary community, as a representative of the great sweep, the great wave of evolution on Earth. And this manifesto ends with this call for a new consciousness, for a planetary consciousness, for evolution. And since then I've been representing this call for a new evolution where we are part of nature, part of what is happening here. The universe is not a passive background. The universe is an active, developing organism, almost a living organism. And certainly the planet, and within the planet, the biosphere, is like a living organism, and we are a part of it. Now we need to become a true and correct part of it. In the past few decades, perhaps a century and a half, we have lost our footing. We have lost our right to be part of the great sweep of evolution, of progress in nature, in biosphere, in the universe. We have gone our own way. We have been seduced, as it were, with the new technologies. We thought anything that can be done should be done, and everything that can be done and will be done can be sold for money. And so it will bound to benefit something or somebody. Actually, it doesn't. Not everything that we can make benefits everything and everybody. Sometimes it's a very short-term benefit which has negative side effects. We've got to look at the whole situation and the whole planet. What is good for life, what is good for the flourishing of life on the planet, is good for each one of us. And that's this new spirit, that the spirit of finding our way. Here we are today, just after a tremendous shock, the shock of a pandemic, a global epidemic that involves all of us, the entire human family. Every bit of the earth, or the surface of the earth, was exposed to this virus. It still is present in many parts. And we have learned something from it. We should have learned something. We cannot take nature as for granted. We cannot just do anything with it. We have to learn to be a part of it. And now we have a choice. We can go back, or we can go forward. We cannot stay as we are. Now we are in a transition period. But we have learned that what we have had before was not the best of all possible worlds, to say the least. It was imperfect in many ways, subject to crisis, subject to breakdowns. Now we have to learn to live truly on this earth, coming back to normalcy. But the normalcy is not the normal of the past century or century and a half. That was out of the norm. We have got to find a new norm. The new norm is the old norm, where life on earth can flourish. What do we have to learn? I can put it in a few words. We have to learn to be coherent. Coherent within ourselves. If all our cells, all our organs are coherent with each other, we are healthy. That's the definition of cell, definition of health. If any part of our body is not coherent with the rest, it becomes a disease. If it just keeps pushing its own interests, reproducing, becomes a cancer. You've got to learn to be coherent in us. That's health. But we've also got to learn to be coherent with the world around us, with each other, and learn to be one with the world, to be coherent inside and out. That's what we call super coherence. And that takes me to the Club of Budapest. Because I've suggested a few years ago, and this is still the main topic for the Club of Budapest, with its 24 member clubs worldwide, to become, as Gandhi said, what we want to see in the world. We want to see higher levels of coherence. We want to see a super coherence. We want to see a world of collaboration, of coordination, of oneness, motivated by love. And that's what we have to become ourselves. What we become is what the world can become, what you could become. That's our great task. The Club of Budapest is dedicated to it. I'm dedicated to it. That's my life's mission. I try to be coherent to the best of my ability, in myself, keep my health, and be coherent with you, the viewers, with all people around me, with the whole community of life on this globe. If we can do that, we can go forward. We don't have to stay as we were. We are pushed out of that sameness, that status quo. We have been jerked, pushed, pulled out of it by the virus. Now here we are, open in a new world, a new era for us. A new era where we can be collaborated, where we can be one, where we can be motivated by a sensation of belonging, sensation of being one, of a living biosphere within a living universe. That's the task. And this is what the Club of Budapest is dedicated to, this is what I am dedicated to, and this is the spirit of planetary consciousness, more relevant, more important today than ever before.